Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's special council meeting. I'll start with the acknowledgement. We, the Greater Shepparton City Council, begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture, and we acknowledge the memory of the ancestors. Item number 2 on the agenda is privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Item number 3 is apologies, nil today. Item 4 is declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, is there any declaration of conflict of interest today? No. Thank you. Move on to page number 4, item 5.1. Greater Shepparton City Council 2020-2021 draft budget. Councillors, there's a recommendation on page 4. Would a councillor like to move a motion? Councillor O'Keefe. And
thank you, Madam Mayor.
Motion?
Happy to move the recommendation on page 4 that the Council, number 1, authorise the exhibition of the 2020-2021 draft budget as presented. Number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to A, give public notice of the preparation of the 2020-2021 draft budget in accordance with Section 129 of the Local Government Act 1989. B, stipulate in the public notice that persons may make a submission on the 2021 draft budget in accordance with Section 223 of the Act, and that written submissions must be received by no later than 5 p.m. on 29th of May 2020. C, undertake the administrative procedures necessary to enable the Council to carry out its functions under Section 223 of the Act in relation to this matter. 3, hold a special Council meeting on Tuesday the 2nd of June 2020 at 5:30 p.m. to hear any persons wishing to be heard in support of their submission on and the proposal contained in the 2021 draft budget in accordance with Section 223 of the Act. And 4, consider all written submissions on any proposal contained within the 2020-21 draft budget.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hazelman. Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a procedural matter. The Local Government Act of 1989, as mentioned, requires the Council to give public notice of the preparation of the budget, and a person has a right, or people has right, to make a submission on any proposal contained within the budget. Submissions will be received until 5 p.m. Friday the 29th of May 2020. So we do encourage the community to look at the draft budget. If there's something they would like to see included or further information, please contact Council in regard to that matter.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Hazelman, would you like to speak to the motion?
Very, very briefly, because I think Councillor O'Keefe covered the purpose of tonight's meeting very, very well. Tonight isn't a debate about the budget itself or its contents. It's about a process about advertising, and it's a process about giving people the opportunity to make a submission, and then Council hearing those submissions before finally making a decision about what the budget contains or doesn't contain. And like Councillor O'Keefe, I would encourage residents to obtain a copy of the draft budget, either off our website or preferably, if they wish, in a hard copy. Read the document in some detail, ask questions about it, and then please put in a submission to ensure that we get the maximum informed comment that we can in relation to this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelman. Would any councillor like to speak against the motion? Would any councillor like to speak for the motion? Sorry, too many hands. Yes, Councillor Summer.
Yeah, I'd like to just draw attention to a few of the issues that were in there. Just for comment, not necessarily debate, although it is a council agenda item, so it's all relevant. I can appreciate the difficulty of drawing up a budget with such unprecedented times in front of us. It's a worldwide pandemic, and initially I thought we must be looking at a huge saving. Being a service industry, most of our services have come to a halt, but after an hour-long phone call with finance yesterday, I was told that fixed utility and employee costs still outweigh any proposed savings. There's no freeze on the enterprise bargaining agreement, and we're retaining as many staff as possible, transitioning about 70 to 80% already in remote employment, which is terrific. One thing I don't necessarily agree with is bringing forward a $10 million loan, and that was flagged for next year. Wasn't long ago this council had no borrowings at all, like 0 borrowings and 0 interest. Prior councils were very frugal, and to me it just seems like we're treating it almost like making up for lost time. The budget shows target loan bands set by the state and compares us with councils that have higher borrowings than us, almost giving an impression that high borrowings is something to aspire to, which obviously is not the case. Interest rates are at record lows, so I would understand if the 10 million was going towards something very significant, but it's flagged for things like drainage and roadworks, which is very underwhelming. Changes to the Local Government Act mean that we no longer need to specify where borrowings are spent, and that means that we can sit on this loan to protect our liquidity and bypass the need to re-advertise the budget if a loan is required in the future. And that sounds great. It's really good in theory. But personally, I just don't see that as being very transparent. And it's more likely that the money will be spent if we make it available in the budget. So if we can't manage with what we have now, we have a very large budget. Yes, there's a 2.5% rate cap, but if we can't manage this budget, what makes us think we can manage it in the future? So next year proposes another $12 million loan, and I think we need to start looking for efficiencies. It's a transition time. Amazing transitions can be made during a crisis. We need to be a bit more sustainable than loans, in my opinion. I wanted to talk a bit, I probably will go over time, sorry Madam Mayor. I'll just...
You have a little bit of time left.
A little bit of time left, because I wanted to get onto that long-standing debate about the municipal charge, and I'm just going to call it an MC for time. And I wanted to reference quotes directly taken from Greater Shepparton Resources, emails and documents, instead of trying to put my spin on it. These words came straight from the organisation, so they're true and correct.
Want an extension?
If allowable, yes.
Yeah. What about you?
We're all happy.
Yeah. Everybody okay?
Thank you. Sorry, I know you deal with me doing this every year, but I do appreciate it. I'll start with what it is. The MC enables raising a portion of the rates by a flat fee for all properties rather than the sole use of the capital improved value method. So we know that. And quote, if there was no MC, this would be collected by the general rate, unquote. So clearly there is no shortfall, and we won't need to look for any kind of lost funding elsewhere. Quote, removal of the MC would see a general reduction for the residential rating group, unquote. And removing it would have less of an impact on rates than if we removed the differential, so it's a nice little compromise. So the purpose of the MC is to, quote, spread more evenly the administration costs to the council. That's what we've said. So I've got this little diagram here, and the municipal charge is in the red. And quote, the municipal charge is regressive, which means that as the value of properties decrease, the municipal charge increases as a percentage of that value. And as a result, the burden is reduced on higher value properties. And low value, well, unquote, low value properties do the heavy lifting. So if, quote, if the municipal charge was to be abolished, ratepayers in the residential category with the capital improved value less than a certain amount would see some kind of reduction in rates, unquote. That amount is $432,000, and being a disadvantaged community, our median residential CIV is almost half that amount. 86% of general properties would see a rate reduction. and including industrial and commercial properties, 78% of all properties would see a rate decrease. So, quote, Greater Shepparton's current rating strategy is transparent and acknowledges that the municipal charge is regressive, i.e. places burden on lower value properties. The purpose of the municipal charge is to maintain a minimum contribution by low valued properties towards the provision of council services, unquote. And I'm curious as to what services are used by vacant blocks, because that's generally most of the people who are picking up the burden here are just vacant blocks, so that could be explored. This council also said, quote, with an MC, the rate burden is considered to be spread more equitably. Now, literally taking money off the low end and distributing up to the top 22%, and only 6% of them benefit more than $150. 6%. So who are we really serving by the municipal charge? What is this? What is this purpose?
Councillor Summer, the time
All
has
right.
expired, so you have to
Thank you for
end
listening.
here. Thank you very much. Would any councillor like to speak for the motion? Councillor Giovanetti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to endorse the comments of Councillor O'Keefe and Councillor Hazelman in what they were saying earlier. I would also urge all residents to obtain a copy of the budget and to go through it in some detail, because it will affect them in many ways. As was stated in the motion, that there is going to be a special council meeting on the 2nd of June where we will hear all of the submissions that people wish to make. So we look forward to that. One thing I'd just like to add as a final point, we often hear of documents being called a living document. Well, this is a living budget, I think, because what we have at the moment is not necessarily what we're going to end up with because of the unknowns pertaining to COVID-19. So people should be aware that whatever budget is adopted on the June meeting may not necessarily be the end budget that we end up with because of COVID-19.
Thank you, Councillor Giovanetti. Would any councillor like to speak to the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think it's very unusual circumstances this year, and tonight is about getting this out so the public can have a look and read about it. That's what it's about. So my concern is that people have access to the draft budget, and with the current lockdown on the COVID-19, it's not that easy. It is available online, but please, if anyone wants a copy, they've only got to ring the front desk, which will be answering the phone, and they can send a copy out. That's what tonight's about, getting out there so people can actually read it, then make up their mind at their own time on what they support and don't.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without going over the same things the other councillors have said, I fully agree with what they've said. I just want to read quickly one of the paragraphs in the preparation documents for this. The impact of COVID-19. The 2021 draft budget has been prepared on the assumption that current restrictions as at April 2020 relating to COVID-19 impacting council services and the community will continue through till 30th of September 2020. So just to reiterate what Councillor Giovanetti said, I have no doubt that this will probably change in some form throughout the year. This has been prepared, assuming that we'll have the same conditions and restrictions applying, or the impacts of these restrictions through to the 30th of September. But I do want to congratulate Councillor Summer for being the first submitter. I've been very passionate about that subject for many, many years, and she has the right to make her views known, and she has. So seriously, I think what you said has some merit, no doubt about it. But ultimately the council will make a decision, so good luck lobbying.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Would any councillor like to move to? Would any councillor like to speak to the motion? Okay, so we'll now go to the vote. Those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this special council meeting. I declare the meeting closed at 5:44 p.m. Thank you very much.
Good little
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.